Hey everybody, Brad Panovich here, Chief Meteorologist at wcnc. Now that we're past the severe weather, we could start looking at the long range, kind of the colder pattern shaping up for the new year. So much talk online, and some of it's borderline ridiculous. The one thing I will tell you, I'll be completely honest with you, it's going to get cold, right? We don't know the extent of the cold. We don't know about winter precip for sure, but it's ridiculous to look at 10 plus day specific forecasts. So if you see anything that says this much snow 14 days ahead of time, it's just garbage. It just is. I mean, yeah, it's out there. That data is available, but we know as meteorologists it's highly inaccurate. So we focus on bigger patterns. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. Why are we growing confident that there's going to be a really big cold outbreak? Well, something called cross-polar flow looks like it's going to develop in the atmosphere. It's easier to see larger patterns than little things like snowfall totals at your house out in the future. So one thing we're noticing here in the long range, and there's a lot of support for this, is we're going to see a big trough dig in the jet stream. And what that means is there's going to be a big dip in the jet stream over the eastern half of the country, and the flow of air from this is going to come straight across the Arctic and into the eastern US. What we don't quite know yet, though, is where the hardest part or the harshest part of this cold will be directed, because that's something that's still a little bit unknown. If we look at North America a little bit closer, one thing we know, this cold air is coming south, right? Over the eastern half of the country. Somewhere here, we're going to see cold air, but is it going to be directed more towards New England, the Great Lakes, the deep south? Those are question marks we don't know. We know it's going to get cold, but it's kind of like a heat dome. You don't know where the heat dome is going to camp out. You just know it's going to be warm somewhere. And that's really what's setting up here. So when we look at the long range, you'll start seeing that the chances of below average temperatures are pretty significant starting a week from today. These are 5 day anomalies. So these take into 5 days at a time. This week, nothing. And really, we're a week away from the first dip in the jet stream. So the first dip doesn't bring you winter weather. It brings you the first batch of cold air. The cold air camps out and it sits here. To me, this is the biggest thing that I've noticed in this pattern. It's not just that it's cold, but it's a long duration cold snap. So really starting the middle of next week, into the following weekend, the 12th, that weekend of the 12th, this is when it gets really cold. So, guys, this is like 2 weeks out, right? So, the specifics of this, we don't know. We know it's going to be cold. Everybody in the eastern half of the country is cold. Whether we're going to be a couple degrees cold or we're going to be 20 or 30 degrees colder than normal, it's too early to know that. We just know it's going to be colder than normal, which, by the way, is in the coldest time of the winter. Starting on the 6th of January, through the 22nd. I was looking this up today for Charlotte. That is statistically, climatologically, and historically the coldest part of the winter. So for it to be below average during the coldest part of the winter tells you it's going to be pretty cold out there across the region. So that's really cold. It's like having 10 degrees above in the hottest part of summer. That's going to be really hot, right? So it's going to be cold and it's going to stick around for a while. That cold air sticks around all the way through the middle of the month. But again, we're talking 10, 14 days into the future. It's really hard for me to get overly excited about something that far out because of the uncertainty at that time range. A lot of these models, the GFS used to goes out this far for a long time. The European model, which we know is a better model, now goes out this far, but we don't know if it's good out to that range. We knew it was good out to 10 days, but beyond 10 days, the accuracy in weather modeling decreases dramatically. You're talking 40% chance of that being correct or less. So when you look at probabilities, I always like probabilities because in the ensemble guidance, this is the chances of seeing temperatures 10 degrees below average. So as we go into next week, you can see most of the southeast, those are really high chances, right? You're talking down at the bottom of the screen, 70, 80, almost 90% chance of it being 10 degrees below average, okay? But we know the accuracy at this range is only about 40%. So while that's a high chance of being below average, there's essentially a coin flip that even happens at all. So there's still a lot of uncertainty. The higher or longer out to the future you go, the more uncertainty. But I will tell you what we're certain about. It's going to be cold. You can see there's very consistent pattern of cold weather over the southeast. Now, the next question people ask, Brad, what about the chances for wintry weather? Well, here are my rules, right? 7 to 10 days out, we start looking for the pattern, okay? We're right on the borderline. 10 days out, yes, the pattern is there. I will admit to that. We do have a favorable pattern starting after the middle of next week. I'm talking January 8th, 9th, not the beginning of next week. Remember, the first cold snap doesn't bring the snow. in the Southeast, if you've lived here long enough, you know, let's go back to this look at the jet stream, right? So the first dip comes down. Watch this. We'll go into early next. So this is Saturday. Okay, this is Sunday. That's pretty warm right there, right? But we go into Monday, Tuesday. There's the first cold front. That's not going to bring snow. It's just not. So if you see snow for early next week, that's not happening. But once the cold air is established, then it's the follow-on system that throws moisture into the cold air, which was established by the first storm. Okay, so the first system or the first dip in the jet stream lays the groundwork for the follow-on system. So the first one, it just doesn't really bode well for snow here in the Southeast. It's the second system, but this is why this is a good pattern, and I'll explain why. Remember me talking about the duration. The cold air sticks around. So the fact that the cold air sticks around gives chances for the northern branch and the southern branch to work together and time out a system that moves like this and throws moisture back into that cold air. So those chances are there. We just don't know about specifics. The other thing I will caution you is winter storms here could have snow, sleet, ice, or miserable cold rain. That's why in my rules, we don't know about the timing of the storm type or what it's going to have until about 3 to 5 days out. So if you're looking 14 days out and somebody's showing you this, they're doing it wrong. We're just getting to this first step, folks. Don't put the cart in front of the horse, right? You know how it goes. The longer out, the less accurate things are. If someone tries to be super precise at a long range, they're going to be wrong, right? It's just like I posted in my post earlier today on Facebook that, you know, when we travel for the holidays. You travel 8-9 hours in a car. I go up to Ohio to see family or friends up there. If I left first thing in the morning and my GPS says I'm going to get there at 7:45, I know that's false because we're going to stop. We're going to get gas. We're going to eat. We're going to get stuck in traffic. A lot of things are going to happen. So we're not going to be at that precise time. But as we get closer to my folks' house or to your family's house, you're like an hour away. You go, oh, hey, we've got a more precise time. We know we're probably going to be closer. So don't, try to take these precise forecasts with any grain of salt. You just can't do it. Just like any sport, golf, football, basketball, the farther away the shot is, the harder it is to get it perfect. As you get closer, those putts become easier, right? So it's the same thing in weather. And that's why we can start looking at the pattern. It's favorable. Starting the middle of next week, it's going to be cold, but it's way too early. So this is just kind of the beginning outlook of it. I obviously will talk more about this over the next coming days, possibly weeks, it looks like. But right now, the biggest thing I could tell you is be prepared for cold and long-lasting cold. How strong or how extreme that cold is, we're not sure yet, but it's certainly going to be the coldest air of the winter so far, and probably the coldest air we've seen for this extended period of time in several years here in the Carolinas.